Welcome everyone. Hello, nice to have you. My name is Bo. I'm from Vision Australia's digital access team. I hope you're all doing well. So just firstly, as mentioned in the chat, we did intend to have live captioning through Otter, which we had on our last webinar, but we're having technical difficulties with that. So we apologize for not having those ready for you. There will be a video posted early next week, I believe, and that will include captions. So if you require captions, then that you have that option, and we'll also send out the live transcript tomorrow as well, if you want to read through that. I'd say the video is probably better, hopefully, but you've got options. Again, yeah, apologize for that. And hopefully for our next one, we'll have that all going well. So thank you for taking the time out of your day to be here today. It's our second free webinar of the year. Brownie points if it's your second of our webinars for the year. Post in the chat if you were at our last webinar last month. So today we are joined by my colleague at Digital Access, Matt, who is going to talk to us about web accessibility testing tools. It's a very common topic we get asked about. So hello, Matt.
Hello, Bo.
We also have Deb providing support and making sure the lights stay on and everything is running. So hi, Deb, and thank you. So before we get started, Matt will run his presentation and then we'll do questions afterwards. We had a number of questions that have come in already and we'll take those. And we'll also be taking questions through the Q&A feature of Zoom, just down below the presentation. So please raise questions. You might already have a question, chuck that in Q&A. Something might come up while Matt's presenting, throw the questions in there and we'll get to as many as we can afterwards. And I've already mentioned there will be a recording of the webinar and that will be posted to YouTube next week, so you can have a look at that and it will have captions. Okay, so Matt is a senior digital accessibility consultant in our digital access team at Vision Australia, and he runs our very popular web accessibility techniques and testing training course. And with that, I'll hand it over to you, Matt.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I do have an example website to go through today, but I was wondering if anyone in the audience would be brave enough to share their website homepage. I will be going through and just showing the testing tools on that particular web page, and I will be showing things that are particularly good and maybe not so good about your particular web page. And if anyone wants to share their homepage, right, we've already got one taker. Then I'll take a look at that page and see if it's suitable for what I want to show. Yeah, that looks pretty good. All right. First one to the punch was ncver.edu.au. I just want to confirm with you, Lee, if you're okay with me showing your website to the world, including, it's going to be available on YouTube later. So I may find some WCAG failures. As long as you're okay with that, then we should be good. All right. So with that, let's get my recording started. Share screen. Okay. So I presume everyone can see we got the NCVER website open, and it's the first time I've ever seen this website. I've never seen it before. So this is going to give a pretty authentic experience on sort of what I do when I encounter a website for a first time and I need to assess it for accessibility. The first thing I do is just give a quick look over for a visual inspection of the website. This is your first tool, essentially. It's just using your eyes and looking around and seeing if you can identify any WCAG failures or any potential accessibility problems. The first thing I notice is we have a little search feature here, and there's a question, what are you looking for? And I'm just going to make sure I have the chat open as well. And this text here is light gray text on a white background, which for some people low vision may be difficult to actually be able to read. So we can test that officially in a little bit. but let's just have a little scroll down and see if there's anything else that stands out to me as being a particularly big problem. And I don't see anything else that's likely to be a particular design failure straight up. The other thing that can often happen a lot with home pages is something that moves, such as a carousel. And something that constantly is moving on the page can be very distracting for a lot of people with cognitive disability. It can cause a lot of stress as well if something is just moving constantly on the page while they're trying to read other content. So if you do have anything that moves, such as a carousel, it's always a very good idea to have a pause button available with your carousel. But there's no moving content on this page, so we don't need to worry about that. So we got some bit of text here that is quite suspicious and that it is probably going to be a bit difficult to read. So I'm going to open up a little tool that I have called the Color Contrast Analyzer. And this is a tool available on the Vision Australia website. It's also available on the TPGI website. And what this tool allows you to do is make sure that text stands out well enough from the background. So you can choose a foreground color here and also a background color. So for my foreground color, I'm just going to click on my little eyedropper tool and go over to our gray text and just click on a pixel that looks good. And we see that we got a gray here of B2B2CO on a white background. I can confirm that is indeed white, and it is. And we got a 2:1 contrast ratio. So the effect that this has is that this little bit of text, what you're looking for, is very likely going to be hard to see for people with low vision, and this would count as a WCAG failure. As you can see down here, the color contrast analyzer not only tells me the contrast ratio, but also simply whether or not it fails WCAG. So we're looking at AA here as what we usually test to. And we find that we get a failure for regular size text, in which case this definitely is. So what can we do about this? The problem with this bit of text is that it's a placeholder text. It's, text that tends to disappear when you type some text into the field. So, one thing you could do is make this text darker, but that creates an issue that people may think that there is already text in the field itself. So a best thing to do would likely to just be have a standard label right before this search field that says, what are you looking for, or search, or something like that. And then just get rid of this placeholder text that is in there. And that way you effectively have a much more accessible design, and that we have some white text here that is going to be clear for everyone to read. And also people aren't going to get confused if there's text already in the form field. So the next thing I do when I am looking at a website for a first time is I start testing with the keyboard. Anyone can test with the keyboard. It's actually extremely easy and best testing tools if you just want to get a very quick idea on how accessible this particular website or tool is. If you're looking at if you've got multiple vendors to choose from and you want to buy a product from a vendor, then try and get access to the tool and start using the keyboard on their tool, and you'll be able to tell very quickly if they have considered accessibility in their tool. So to start with testing keyboard access, I'm just going to go up to the top here and start pressing the tab key. And after a few tabs, at least in Firefox, you will eventually get into the page. And the first tab I find is up the very top left-hand corner. We have a skip to content link. So this is an accessibility feature in the Nvda website. And what it allows you to do is, for keyboard navigators, they could press the skip to content link and it will take them down below the navigation, which is especially helpful because when you're navigating around to different web pages in the Nvda website, you will always be at the very top of the page. Every time a new page loads, focus moves to the very top. So having that skip to content link so they can skip past the navigation and get to the main content of the page is very, very helpful. I'm just going to test and see if this actually works. So I'm currently focused on it now. And if I want to activate it, I can just press the Enter key. And I do appear to have moved down. If I press tab now, I am somewhere. It's not entirely clear where I am. I appear to be in this little menu down here. So I did move focus down, but for a little bit there, it was hard to see where I was. So I'll get back to that in a moment. So I'm just going to start again, and I'm just going to press the tab key on my keyboard to navigate forwards. I'm going to go back to the skip to content link, and I'm going to press tab again to move forwards. And there's a skip to navigation link as well, which is very cool. We're now focused on the Nvda logo. So that's good. I can clearly tell where I am there. I'm now over here at about Nvda, contact us, subscribe, and focus is gone. So I'm probably focused on the search button here, but I cannot see a focus indicator. So that particular accessibility failure in that when you're tabbing along with the keyboard, I should always be able to easily tell where I am. So at Vision Australia, we have our own little internal tool, which shows our focus indicator. So I'm just going to enable that just to sort of help me figure out where we are. And indeed, focus did move to that little button there. So there are focus indicator plugins that you can get online. You can just do a little Google search for it. And there are some extensions available on the web, which will enable you to turn on a little focus indicator for your website in case your current website doesn't have a particularly strong focus indicator. So that proves to me that, yep, focus was definitely going there, but I just couldn't see it. So I'm going to turn my focus indicator back off. And then we get down to research and statistics. So that appears to be a link, and it pops open a bit of text there, which is pretty fancy. RTO Hub and news and events. So that's very cool. This does also appear on mouse hover. So that is good news that the same information appears on keyboard focus as well. And I'm going to press tab down to here. Is the form field. Now, something to note here is that when you're tabbing, you only navigate to links, buttons, form controls, basically anything that's interactive on the website. So it's okay that I skipped past this text. That's perfectly fine when you're just tabbing, pressing the tab key on the keyboard. So I wouldn't expect it to go down to focus on National Centre for Vocational Educational Research and then this bit of text and then the search field. That would actually be not a good idea, because then it could imply that this bit of text here is interactive in some way, because anything that's tabbable is usually interactive. So there's a search field, and I can see a little blinking cursor where I am there. And also I get a little focus indicator on the search button. And I press tab from here, and I've lost it again. I don't know where I am. So I'm just going to turn on my little focus indicator and hope that I can see where it went. And yeah, it appeared to go to this container for this little image link here. And in fact, I can focus on it twice. There's a focusable div and a focusable A element. So there's that's mainly caused by tab minutes equals 0. So I'm going to show you how this works actually in, it's a Slick slider. Okay. So Slick is a fairly popular plugin for carousels and sliders. And unfortunately, it's not the most accessible plugin, which is why we're already running into accessibility issues with it. There's actually an accessible version of the Slick slider available. If you type in accessible Slick slider into Google, you'll find the plugin, and actually resolves a lot of the issues that the regular Slick slider has. So that can be a consideration. But what I found in here was we have tab minutes equals 0. What that does is it makes that container focusable. So if you put tab minutes equals 0 onto anything, it will make it a focusable object. So I'll be able to tab to it. But also down here on the link itself, there's also tab index equals 0 on that link. And it's also a link with a href, which means it's focusable anyway. So essentially what we could do here is just remove this tab index equals 0. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And now let's see what happens when I tab down. And now I only get focus to that particular object once because I removed that tab index equals 0 from the div container. So I'm going to turn off my little helper tool and just keep tabbing. And again, there appears to be a double focusable object in our slick slider where it seems that I can focus on new podcast episode, this little thing down here twice. I'm just going to show that. Yep, it definitely is focusing on that twice. And it does appear to be because there's just two focusable objects on the same spot. So there's, yep, tab index equals 0 on a button. And then there's also a link within that button. So this is just the inaccessibility of Slick Slider in that it isn't very well thought through. And it does create some minor accessibility issues like that, where we can focus on the same thing twice. So I definitely recommend looking up the Accessible Slick Slider plugin for all developers out there listening. Check out that slider, and then if a client wants you to put in a slider or a carousel on the website, then just put in the Accessible Slick Slider version, and then you won't occur these issues. As we go through, let's just go through a few more. We go over to quick access here, and each of these links are focusable, which is great. Down here, we got some more focusable links. And I'm just going to turn off my little helper to make sure it is clear that I'm focused on them. And yes, it is. We get to data builder, visualization gallery, very clear to tell where I am at the moment. I'm down here in the follow us. That's an interesting logo for YouTube. And then we got LinkedIn and then the footer stuff down there. And then we even got a little focus indicator on the back to top. And then we get to the end of the page and it will loop back around to the top if we keep pressing tab. So the keyboard is one of the best tools you have for testing accessibility and just getting an idea on how accessible a website is. Straight up, all you need to do is open up any web page and start pressing that tab key. Can you see where you are at all times? And is everything that's interactable keyboard focusable? In this particular web page, it was. There was nothing that I noticed that is clickable but isn't also keyboard focusable. So that's good news. So there isn't any keyboard failures that I could necessarily find. But there were some issues with being able to clearly see the focus indicator. So that is definitely something that can be improved on this particular website. By the way, if you press tab, you go forwards. If you go shift and tab at the same time, you go backwards. So that's a helpful bit of tip there for keyboard navigation. And also if you're going for a form or maybe some tab content, you may need to use the arrow keys for some things, such as radio buttons require you to use the arrow keys to select a certain radio button. Same thing as drop-down lists may require you to use the arrow keys to select something from the drop-down list. So occasionally, if you're finding that the tab key isn't working and getting you to everything, try the arrow keys as well, because that may get you to what you need to get to. All right, so I went through and tested with the keyboard. The next thing I'm going to try is a screen reader. So one of the best screen readers I feel for testing is a screen reader called Nvda. It stands for Non-Visual Desktop Access, and it's a free screen reader. If you know about JAWS screen reader, it's a fairly comparable screen reader in at least on the web with getting through websites. It's even though JAWS is a commercial tool that costs over $1,000, which is JAWS is really, really good if you need to use Microsoft Office or other sort of programs similar to that. But if you just need to navigate and test a website, Nvda is actually a really, really good tool for testing. So I'm just going to share my computer sound. All right, so you should start hearing Nvda as I navigate through the website now.
Navigate home HD.
So the first rule of learning a screen reader is that with JAWS and Nvda, if you press the control key, it will shut up the screen reader. So if Nvda is going to be blabbing along as I'm talking, and if I need to shut up, what I'm doing is that I'm pressing the control key on my keyboard, and that just immediately stops it from talking. So I'm just going to, once again, start at the very top of the page up in the URL bar, and I'm going to press tab a few times until I enter the actual web page.
Library bookmarks, home. Banner landmark navigation landmark visited link for home.
Okay.
Navigation landmark link about Nkver. Link contact us from Bovas to.
So that was something a little bit interesting there. We heard some landmark announcements. So the screen reader is actually telling me that there are some landmarks in the HTML. It told me about a banner landmark, and I think a navigation landmark as well. Something I'm going to do to help all of everyone watching is I'm going to turn on the speech viewer in Nvda. And that basically captions what Nvda is saying so that we can go back and review what Nvda said at any particular time.
On research notification chevron, notification Nvda.
So to find the Nvda settings, you need to go into your system tray.
Nvda menu.
And right click on the Nvda logo.
Tools menu.
Go to the tools menu.
Speech viewer.
And then speech viewer.
Home Nv startup checkbox not.
Okay, so now this little window in the corner is just going to basically caption what Nvda is saying for me, so that we're very clear and we understand what Nvda is saying.
Navigate home HD bookmarks home document. Link subscribe.
Okay, I found a subscribe link right at the start. That was a bit interesting. If I keep tabbing.
Toggle search.
Okay. So one thing that Nvda does is that when you first enter the page, it will start reading out all the content of the page. And if you then were to tab after that, it will pick up where you were. So it got to the subscribe link, and then that's where I was on the page. So, but that's okay. I've just moved Nvda back to the start. So we're on the skip to content link at the moment. And Nvda is now just stopped randomly.
Navigation research.
There we go. Oh, that's a bit
navigation
interesting.
For home visited link.
So for some reason, Nvda is not announcing our skip to content links, and that may be due to a problem in the HTML.
Last in home document. Ref class equal.
Yep, there it is. So on your container that has the skip to content links, you have this little attribute, aria hidden equals true. What that does is that it tells the screen reader to completely ignore the skip to content link. Now you don't want this. Basically, skip to content links are very helpful for screen reader users as well. So basically you put in this accessibility feature, and then you've got this little attribute in there, which is telling the screen reader to completely ignore that accessibility feature. So this is a really easy fix. All we need to do is just remove this aria hidden equals true from our little container.
Aria hidden attributes. Remove attribute left quote aria hidden right quote. Developer tools frame.
Okay, so I've just removed the attribute, and let's if Nvda announces a skip to content link.
Home navigate for home list with 2 items skip to navigation link. Skip to content visited link.
That problem solved. So that is an accessibility failure in that we have some aria hidden attribute that really shouldn't be there. And it is causing an accessibility issue because of that little attribute. So remove it and you will improve the accessibility of your website.
Skip to navigation link.
Aria hidden equals true can be used for good purposes. It's not like it's an always bad attribute. There are some cases where you do want to hide content from a screen reader user for a number of reasons. Maybe it's hidden content or content that shouldn't be interacted with at a certain time. You might put aria hidden equals true onto it, but skip to content links, even though they're visibly hidden until you focus on them, they shouldn't have aria hidden equals true on them. Otherwise, screen reader users are going to get a bit confused about why there are some tabbable objects at the start of the page that don't seem to announce anything with their screen reader.
Banner landmark navigation landmark for home visited link.
So Nvda doesn't say NCVER, it says Nvda, which is a little bit interesting. But often when you have acronyms, you can get the screen reader to actually spell it out. So I can demonstrate this at least over here.
Navigation landmark about for link. BOUT space NCVER.
There we go. So I just use the right arrow key there, and the right arrow will spell out a word with the screen reader. So if someone is confused about what Nvda is, then they can always spell it out.
For home visited link.
So NCVR home visited link. That is our first object on the page. So that's telling me two things, that this is the NCVR website, and also this is a link to the homepage, which is quite cool. So that's actually not a bad announcement for that image.
Navigation landmark about for link.
So this time we've reached a navigation section, and there's actually a navigation landmark in the website here. So the screen reader told me that. We are now in a navigation section, and then it read out about NCVER link.
Contact us link. Subscribe link. Toggle search graphic link.
Okay, so we found a toggle search. Identified it as a graphic because it's an image, and then it told me it's a link. So typically when we have a link, it's telling me that if I activate this link, it's going to take me somewhere. So let's see if that happens if I activate it.
From Bovas to every. For search edit, what are you looking for?
It did actually navigate me down to the search field. So that is a valid link. If it was a something that just activated something but didn't move me somewhere, then that would be a button. So that's the difference between a link and a button. A link takes you somewhere, either internally on the same page or to a different web page, whereas a button activates something or submits something. So it could be a submit button for a form, but it could also be, for example, a button that expands or collapses content on the page. That would be a button. So that's quite cool. That skipped me down to the little search field that's on the page. But I'm just going to go back to check out the rest of the stuff that's going on.
Navigation landmark research and statistics. Find our current and published research and statistical reports, data collections, surveys, and visualizations on the Australian Vocational Education and Training System. Link.
Okay, so Nvda announced all of that as part of the link. That does mean a pretty long link announcement. So, you could just have it say research and statistics. And then if the screen reader user wanted to know more information, then they could maybe press the down arrow key.
Link find our current and published research
and then they'll be able to read the text under that. But overall, not too bad.
RTO Hub reporting tools, resources, and support for registered training organizations. News and events, all the latest updates and events.
Okay, it's all the same sort of thing going on there.
For search edit, what are you looking for?
So I pressed the tab key that time just to show, even with the screen reader enabled, I skip past text with the screen reader just by pressing the tab key. But what I'm going to do now is just press the up arrow.
First, inform heading level 1, National Center for Vocational Education Research.
And with the up or down arrows, you can read everything on your website with your screen reader. So typically the main way that a screen reader user would navigate is they would, just press the down arrow key just to read the next line on the website. So that is how you read text with a screen reader. You just need to use the down arrow key. If you're using the tab key, you will never get to just plain text. So if you want to get text to be announced with your screen reader, you just need to press the down arrow key. So that's all you need to do there.
Informing and influencing the Australian vet sector.
Something notable here.
Heading Level 1, National Centre for Vocational Education Research.
Is that the screen reader told me heading level 1 here, which is excellent, because that is what I would call the main heading of this page. And the screen reader does announce heading levels, which is extremely useful. Visually, we can tell that this big bit of text is, the main heading of the page. But people who are blind using a screen reader won't be able to tell that. So the screen reader actually told me heading level 1 here. And that is thanks to using proper HTML heading markup in your website. So
now, in developer tools
I can show that there. So that bit of text actually has the H1 element in HTML. So the screen reader does announce heading level 1 when you get to that bit of text.
Now, home document, banner landmark. For search edit read only blank.
Okay. Something interesting here is the screen reader told me that this form field.
For search edit what? Navigation landmark banner landmark search button. For navigation for search edit what are you?
That was a little bit interesting. I found a search field that had read only on it right before. Okay. So the prize, your website actually has 2 input fields right here. There's actually 2 separate input fields. There is, the one that we can see, which is this one, but there's also one right before
spell
it
check
that also says Nvda search. That's the label on it, and actually has tab index equals -1 on that other input field, and that makes it not keyboard focusable. But things that aren't keyboard focusable are still screen readable. So if I were to
home document
just
blank,
go back to where we were,
banner land blank, for search edit read only, informing and influencing
so there's
the
that bit of text.
For search edit read only.
Nvda search edit read only.
For search edit what are you looking for? From
and
Andrew
there is a second search field there. So Andrew said, is the second field a honey trap for bots? Possibly, I'm not sure. But it does mean that the screen reader announces just a random second form field here when getting to your regular search field. And it may be a bit confusing because that first search field is read only. So it's sort of implying that you can't do anything with that search field. So one thing you could do, this is actually where we could use aria hidden equals true. So what I'm going to do in here is put in aria hidden equals true. I'm just going to add that little attribute in there, and then that will make the screen reader ignore this little input field.
Stop tree view national home document button search for informing.
There I am on informing, influencing the Australian vet sector. I'm going to press down arrow.
For search edit, what are you looking for?
I now just get to the real search field and not the fake hidden one in the background of the website. So there you go. There is a situation on where not to use aria hidden equals true and where you should use aria hidden equals true. Something to note as well here with the search field
navigation
is when I enter it, you hear Nvda do a little chink sound. I'll do it again.
Navigation landmark for
Makes
search
a chink, and then it reads out NCVER search. What that little indicator is telling the blind screen reader user is that you can now start typing. So if I press the H key or whatever key I want on my keyboard, it will literally put in letters into the search field. But usually when you're running a screen reader, pressing a letter on your keyboard will typically navigate you somewhere. For example, the H key will typically skip you to a heading. So there basically needs to be a way for screen reader users to type into form fields. So when you get to a form field, you hear the chink noise, and that will let the the person using that screen reader understand that if I now start typing, I'm not going to skip somewhere. I'm not going to navigate around the page. Instead, I'm just going to be inputting text.
S.
But let's say if I was in the search field and I then wanted to skip to a heading, I can't press H to skip to the next heading.
H.
So what I can do instead is go insert space. You hear a boop noise. Now, if I press H,
Main landmark quick access heading level 2.
I skip to the next heading on the page. So at any time, you can swap between input mode and navigation mode with Nvda. So if I just hit insert space, it will go chink, letting you know I'm in input mode. I can start typing, or boop. I am now, there we go, boop. I am now in navigation mode. And if I press H,
recently released heading level 2.
I will skip to a heading. So
from Karen Wilson.
On the note, how's that navigation mode done again? So insert and space are the two keys that you need. So insert and space, you can swap between navigation and input mode at any time. Okay. And you'll get that sound when you press those two keys. So when you're in navigation mode, this mode, screen reader users can navigate anywhere they want on a particular web page. So for example, if I press H,
featured products and services heading level 2.
It will skip to the next heading. If I go Shift and H,
recently released heading level 2.
It will skip to the previous heading.
Quick access heading level 2. Banner landmark National Center for Vocational Education Research heading level 1.
And this goes to show how important heading markup is on your particular website. If you didn't have any heading markup at all, then screen reader users won't be able to skip to different sections of your particular web page. And that means that just getting around, just getting to different sections and the section that they want takes considerably longer, because they'll need to just press a down arrow and go through everything rather than just pressing the H key to get to the section that they want. And then they can press down arrow from there to get to the content they actually want to read. So heading markup is extremely important, not only so that screen readers say, heading 1, National Center for Vocational Educational Research, but also for a navigation purpose, so that they can press the H key and skip to different headings on that particular web page. So I think I might stop there with Nvda because we've got some other tools to show as well.
Nvda shows task note and
there we go. So the other tool I'm going to show off is Axe. So within this is an extension that you can get for Chrome, Firefox, or Edge. And what it does is that it does a scan of the web page that you're currently on and it tries to find any accessibility failures that it can. So basically to find it, first of all, let's start with that. You go right click inspect, and then you'll find a little Axe tab. When you click into there, you can then scan all of your page, and then it will go through and find a number of issues. Now, some of these issues are going to be best practice, and some of them are going to be WCAG failures. So you'll need to pay attention to that. If you click onto an issue and you're looking at the issue tags, if it actually says a WCAG tag in here, then you know it's an actual WCAG failure and not just a best practice thing like this one, which is only a best practice. So currently on this homepage, Axe found 34 issues, and that includes best practice improvements. So if this is a list of all the issues here, or all the issue types. The first issue it found is relating to list items or lists. So it found that some list markup on your website contains things other than an LI script or template. So it's listed this here, and then what we can actually do is that we can highlight on the page where it is. And guess what? It's the slick slider. What a surprise, having the issue there. So you could probably fix that by implementing an accessible version of that slick slider instead. But apparently it found that within this UL element, the only thing that should be within an UL element usually is LIs or list items. And it found something that wasn't that, and that's a failure of WCAG. It can cause a list to actually break if you have things other than list items within a list. Here it found something that could be fixed. We have some list items up here. It appears to be some list items up here, and it's complaining that there are some list items not included within an LI, but I do see that there. So let's just go back to Axe and make sure. List item does not have a UL, OL parent element without a role or role equals list. I don't see anything wrong there, Axe. Sometimes automated tools give you false positives. Axe is currently telling me that, hey, there are some list items here, and the list item doesn't open with a UL element, which is what you need in HTML to properly mark up a list. Oh, you know what it might be? It actually might be this role equals navigation. So if we were to get rid of that, then that will probably resolve the issue. So if I now rerun Axe, okay, it doesn't find that issue anymore, but it did find other related issues. So what was happening there, I'm just going to refresh the page to get back that code, is we have a opening list item here, UL, and then you've put a role equals navigation. This is invalid ARIA markup. So when you're saying role equals navigation, you're basically turning this into a navigation element, or at least trying to, and that effectively replaces the UL that's here. So that's why Axe found that these list items don't have a parent element. It's because you've replaced the UL with role equals. So here, what I would do instead is I would probably make, you got a navigation element up here anyway, but you could put a div container around your UL and then, or just put another nav element around your UL. And that way you'll have a proper navigation landmark here, while also keeping your list items and your list accessible. So that's something that I didn't spot immediately, but running Axe, it revealed that issue to me. And it took a bit of investigative work. It didn't seem entirely clear at the start, but I was able to figure out that because of role equals navigation, you basically replace that UL element, and it prevents it from working properly. So just to go into Axe, essentially, we have list LI elements must be contained in a UL or OL, and you can highlight where that is. And over here, you can actually go to everything on the page which has that issue, that particular type of issue, which is very, very handy. Apparently, there is also one in the Slick slider. What a surprise. So that is how you find those different issues. It also provides just some general information down here, and it also has a link for more info if you need a better description on what this issue means. Last thing to show, because I believe we are getting close to time, is I'm going to show off one more tool, which will be very, very helpful if you are just getting started with, I'm just going to turn off my dark mode here. If you're just getting started with, there we go, with accessibility testing. So up here, I've got a little extension called Accessibility Insights for Web, and it's a Chrome extension, also available on Edge. And one of the things it can do is tell you, for example, where headings are on the page. So I've just opened this up, and if you click on Ad Hoc Tools, then you get a number of things that can help you with identifying where headings are, for example. So it can actually put little H2s around everything. and it will give you an idea on what kind of heading markup you have on your page. It seems to be pretty good here on this particular website, as long as these are marked up as lists, and they are. So that is good. Yep, really solid heading markup. NCVER. It can also do things like tab stops. And what this enables you to do is it will actually keep track of your focus indicator as you tab through the page. So it will go through and you press tab a number of times and it will show you the focus order throughout the page. And there we go. We've looped back around now. And we can keep going if we want to. But that basically shows the tab order. So there's a number of other tools in here which might be helpful, but the one thing I really want to show you is this assessment page. We'll start new. And what this does is that it enables you to run your own accessibility test of your website. So you can start up here, automated checks. And what it allows you to do is actually go through and test your website for accessibility. So I'm just going to try and get in here. Keyboard, getting started. There we go. So what you can do is that you can go through, it first does an automated test actually using Axe to try and find any issues, and it's just done that automatically for me. And it found, some color contrast failures. It found some, list and list item issues that we found throughout the website. But you can also get to keyboard, for example, and keyboard navigation, and then it actually tells you how to test with a keyboard. So it will actually go through and you can tab with your keyboard and it gives you instructions on how to do this. So if you ever need a checklist on, what we need to test for with accessibility and, actually find all, accessibility issues in the website, this is your checklist, Accessibility Insights for Web. It's actually a tool from Microsoft as well. So it's a pretty respectable tool. So basically it'll tell you how to test it, and then you would go through and conduct that test on the website, pressing the tab key, and then you'll be able to say pass or fail for that particular test. And then you can add a failure instance, and you can add in a little comment here, like, search button does not have a visible focus indicator. And there we go. We now have that comment in there. So this is very, very good if you're just starting out with accessibility testing and you just need a checklist or you just need some guidance on the test. This is very, very helpful. You can just go through each of these ones and effectively do your own little test. And you may not be able to test everything, accessibility knowledge takes quite a bit of time to upskill, but it will at least give you a pretty good idea on how accessible your website is. And you'll be able to find all sorts of different failures and things that are good. So that basically sums up the tools that I was going to show today. So just to summarize what we had just a visual inspection of the page. Just have a look at the page, see if you can find any color contrast failures or things that automatically move. The color contrast analyzer, available on the Vision Australia website or the TPGI website. So that's available there as well. The keyboard, there's navigating with the keyboard, tab and shift tab on any website will give you a, go through and test the keyboard. Nvda is an excellent screen reader for testing. It's definitely the one that I recommend. It's the one that I use first when going through a website. For the first time, I tend to use Nvda first, and then I might use JAWS or go onto a Mac and use VoiceOver. And Axe is a great automated tool for scanning a page, and Accessibility Insights for Web is good if you want to do your own manual testing of a website. So that sums up all the free tools I was going to show today, and let's go to questions.
Okay, thanks, Matt. That was awesome. So we had a few questions that came in before. So we'll get to some of those. We've got Jeffrey who asked, is there a way to find a web page? Is a way to find if a web page is more accessible using a particular screen reader, or if a particular mixture of tools is optimal? Good question.
Yeah, so basically not without trying the screen reader. You basically will need to go through with JAWS, Nvda, VoiceOver, TalkBack, or any other screen reader to see how well that screen reader actually performs. If you're very lucky, the website that you want to use, you could check the accessibility statement. Sometimes there will be a little note to say, you know, we have tested this website with JAWS and Nvda, you know, as our primary focus. So you can probably presume that those screen readers will work better than some of the other ones. But generally, if a website is WCAG conformant and claims to be WCAG conformant, then it should work with all the screen readers that are out there, at least all the modern ones that are often in use and have you know, some actual, you know, they're not like less than 2% user base. So yeah, generally, if it is claims to be WCAG conformant, then you're good. But there is no real way. You can't just look at a web page and go, yep, that's going to work better with JAWS, or yep, that's going to work better with Nvda. You have to test the screen reader to know. And if you are someone with vision impairment, it's a good idea to have an arsenal of screen readers that you can use just in case. Sometimes screen reader just works better with certain web pages, where JAWS work better with one web page, Nvda will work better with the other. So it's good to learn multiple.
All right. Ted asks, which accessibility testing tools are the most reliable? There seems to be a lot of variation in what they produce.
Yes, so all the tools are going to provide some form of false positives, so be aware of that. All the tools, or most of the tools, will often provide best practice as well, and what they count as best practice may vary. So they should be fairly consistent if you're just looking at the WCAG failures. You know, and most of the time they should be fairly consistent. If you look at best practice as well, then you're going to get a variety of different results. So be aware of that. Ensure that you filter your results to actually be what you want it to be. And remember that automated tools like Axe can only find between 30 to 40% of WCAG failures. So if you want to actually find, you know, all the accessibility issues in a website, you've got to do manual testing, like I was showing you with the keyboard, with the screen reader. And that's where you're actually going to find most of your accessibility failures, is when you're testing it yourself using you know, your keyboard or your screen reader. That's where you're going to find most of the issues there.
Mark asks, what are the legal requirements for educational institutions?
So for both government and non-government, currently in Australia, every website should be WCAG 2.0 level AA conformant. How well that is enforced in Australia is a different question entirely. There are, you know, in the past 20 years, 3 major lawsuits, and not, you know, all of them actually related to just the website. So as far as, you know, the legal requirements are actually really, really weak, in that there's some soft laws which say, yeah, you should be WCAG 2.0 double AA conformant, but as far as enforcing that, there isn't much. So if you are someone in an organization and you're passionate about accessibility and you want to make your website accessible, I wouldn't go the legal route. I wouldn't say to your CEO or board or whoever and tell them that you're going to get sued if you don't do this, because in Australia, like, it's extremely rare. You know, it could happen. It definitely could happen. I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but you know, it's unlikely in Australia. So if you're an educational institution, you have to recognize that your students, you know, are going to be people with disabilities as well, and they need access to your content, to your website, to your resources. So I find the best way to change and convince people to, you know, get accessibility and actually start thinking about it is to do some empathy exercises. Get people who are blind, who, you know, are students with disabilities, and get them in either in the same room with that board or just record a video and just show them using the website and encountering accessibility issues. And that will help get the understanding out there that, oh, this is actually a problem for our students and we need to do something about this. So empathy is definitely, I think, the best driver as far as getting websites and documents and apps accessible.
Yeah. Becky asks, how does Google search determine if the site is accessible?
It doesn't really, but things that improve search engine optimization or SEO tends to also be things that are also accessible. So you could add heading markup, adding heading markup to a page actually does, improve SEO a little bit. Adding alt text to images can improve SEO. Having clear page titles up in the tabs of the browser helps SEO a lot. So it's not that Google can tell what is accessible and what isn't, but it just so happens that accessible websites, when you make a website accessible, you are also typically improving the SEO of that particular website as well. So it's just another benefit of making a website accessible, is that you'll get better page rank on Google.
There used to be a tool that Google had, and I presume they still do, where you can put a URL in and it will give you a bunch of ratings on a whole range of things, including page load speed. And there was an accessibility rating it would give you, but it's unclear what exactly they're basing that rating on. It's not part of their search algorithm. The page load speed did get added to their algorithm at some point in the last few years. So I would think that at some point they might want to try and add that to their algorithm so that it is a bit of a differentiator, but they're going to need to work out how they give that rating, how it can measure against other sites. Because as we talked about, automated tools don't catch everything. So I expect it to happen at some point, that they'll add it in. But like you're saying, Matt, the benefits you'll get from doing accessibility for SEO are already going to be there, regardless of whether that's a part of their algorithm. That just might give you a little bonus when that does get included in.
Yep, absolutely.
Sarah asks, I find many web testing tools produce inaccessible results. Are there tools which produce readable results for screen reader users rather than just cluttered visual output? Which is a great question.
Yeah, so in preparation for that question, I did try using a screen reader and a keyboard with Axe, and I did find that it did have skip links within that little extension. So if you haven't already tried Axe, I would give that a go as an accessible option. It's not a tool that relies on actual visible icons on the screen. It does have a highlight feature, which can be useful, but it's only just a small part of the tool. So if you do need to use an accessibility tool and you have vision impairment, I would try Axe as probably your best choice. There are a lot of other tools like Wave or Site Improve Accessibility Checker, or other tools that I really like, but they do rely on being able to see the screen and click on the little icons next to things, next to failures. So Axe isn't like that, so I'd try that if you haven't already.
All right, we've reached time, but I want to have a little lightning round of some of the live questions that came in. So if you don't mind, Matt, let's bash through some of these.
Sure.
And if anyone has to go, thank you for coming. You can watch the rest of this on the recording when it comes through, and have a great day. Otherwise, let's just keep going through quickly for these questions. So Kiri asks, have you found any tools comparable with the old WAT? I think that's the Web Accessibility Toolbar that Kiri is referring to. Knowing that the Paciello group discontinued it and IE is coming to an end, it's very disappointing to not have use of this tool. And Kiri hasn't found anything that's quite the same. So is there anything that you've come across that's similar?
Yes, there is. So I'm just going to share my screen again and demonstrate that. Screen one, there we go. So up here, I actually have it installed. It's called the Web Developer Toolbar. And it does a lot of the same things that the old Web Accessibility Toolbar did. It can do things like outlining headings on the page, but it can also, I believe, do things with the structure, like it can actually load up a list of all the heading structures and things like that. It does work slightly differently to the old web accessibility toolbar, but it does, do things like display alt attributes. Next thing, oh, that's a bit interesting. Icon linking to the latest vocational education and training statistics page. Got a little alt text on that bar chart there, which you can mark that up as decorative, by the way. Nvda. So yeah, this little tool is basically your replacement for the old web accessibility toolbar. Things are going to be in slightly different spots, and you're going to have to relearn it a little bit. But it does have a lot of the same features that the original web had. So yeah, I recommend using this one.
Danusha, I'm sorry if I am getting the pronunciation wrong there, but Danusha asks, well, firstly says it's a very informative presentation, so that's good. And how do you select the WCAG version and or the level A or AA, etc., when you're testing a site? I think that was referring to the Axe tool or those automated tools.
Oh, okay. Let's see if I can work out how to do it. So I believe there should be a way to actually filter the results. Serious. You can sort it by serious and sort of severity. Automated issues, review issues. I don't know. I don't normally filter it, but at the very least, you can see it here, and you can sort by serious, which will only give you WCAG failures, I'm sure. Moderate does have some best practice, and so does minor. So I'm not sure how Axe sorts these issues. If serious is, WCAG failures, and moderate is just moderate and minor best practice. But yeah, I don't see a way easily to actually filter that in the Axe tool to just WCAG failures. Not sure if you know, Bo.
Not sure. Yeah, like you said, when we use this tool, we're basing that on our knowledge and experience of the WCAG guidelines. So we're looking for particular issues depending on the level we're testing for. So it doesn't really come up for us as we do testing. And so, yeah, it does help to have that understanding of the WCAG guidelines and what you're looking for first. Might not help you for a quick overview test, but yeah, that knowledge does help. So yeah, not sure. We'll move on to the next question. Ben, I think you'll like this question. Hi, Matt. For those who can't install extensions, is the built-in Firefox accessibility tab worth using?
Ah, yes, I do like that question a lot. So let's actually demonstrate that as well. So the accessibility tab within Firefox, what it can actually do is a number of pretty cool things. So it actually shows you what's called the accessibility object model, or the accessibility tree. If I were to sort of nail down to this heading, for example, it will actually, you can actually see what kind of markup that screen readers can find. So it actually knows that quick access is a heading because there is actually a role of heading on this bit of text. So you might think that the screen reader reads through the HTML of the website, and that's a half truth. What it's actually doing is that it's reading through this accessibility tree, and this tree is generated by the browser. So Firefox or Chrome will generate this accessibility tree, and the screen reader will read through that tree to actually get its information. So it found quick access heading, and can also see it as regular text. One of the coolest things it can do is actually for color contrast, because if you click on this little box over here, it looks like a little man inside a box. If you click on that and then you hover over text, it will actually tell you what the contrast ratio is. So this is another way of testing color contrast on your website. So for this bit of text, it can tell that it's large text, which can sometimes be hard to figure out. And it tells me that it's a 10.84 to 1 contrast ratio, which is AAA conformant. So that is really, really good. It does have some limitations though, like it can't actually read this placeholder text, which did fail. So it can read regular text really well. The color contrast ratio there, you Here it's telling me this text is just regular size and it only passes AA, which is still fine. But that's probably one of the more useful features of that accessibility tool. But one of the main things that I find is really beneficial of the accessibility tool or accessibility tree is that it can really help with figuring out if the screen reader is acting buggy or not. So for example, this quick access option here, if I got to that with my screen reader and it said, didn't announce a heading, for example, it just said quick access. But I could see in, the accessibility tree that there is definitely, the heading role in here, then I can actually make the determination that this is actually a screen reader bug and not a problem with your website. Because sometimes screen readers bug out. Sometimes they do something that's a bit unexpected, and sometimes they'll have a bug in place. So this can be helpful. This accessibility tree can be really, really helpful for figuring out, is this actually being shown to the screen reader? Is there actually a heading here, a heading role here? And if there is a heading role here, but the screen reader doesn't say it, then it may imply that there is actually a bug with the screen reader. So that is something to keep in mind as a helpful tool of the accessibility tree. But yeah, probably this little tool is probably one of the coolest features. Apparently there's a show tabbing order. Oh, that's cool. That's a new beta thing. Shows the tabbing order through the page. Huh, very cool. Any other questions?
We better leave it there, I think. There was a question about how to document accessibility audits and if there's a template somewhere. I'll just say the Accessibility Insights tool that Matt showed just earlier, that has a kind of report feature as well. So you go through and do those tests one by one, and then you can get a report from that. So that's one way. And there's probably a number of templates out there, unofficial templates out there that you can potentially look at as well.
I know that the W3C, who make the WCAG guidelines, they have their own evaluation reporting tool. So I'll see if I can find that and link that in the chat.
And the one other question from Becky was if it's a good idea to have experts like us test your organization's website, which of course, that's a great idea. I love it. I endorse it. No, but really what we want as a team is to share the knowledge with all of you so that you can go and make these improvements and learn a bit more about accessibility, understand the methods of testing so that you can get to a good level yourselves, and then come to us for confirmation for that little bit of extra expertise in testing to really get conformance to 100%, and then to get best practice as well in place. So we want a base level of knowledge out there. And then what we are great for is to get that extra level. So come to us and we can get your digital products checked out, and you can learn from that as well to take the learning to the next level, learn from the issues that we find, and obviously come to us for training and advice and all of that as well. Okay, so that's 10 minutes over. We've done well. Thank you all for staying and listening to our answers. Thank you so much, Matt, for that presentation and the answers. That's really good. Apologies if we didn't get to any questions. There might be a few we didn't get to. Thank you all so much for coming. Hope you found that interesting and learned some things as well. We'll be looking to do more of these webinars coming up, so stay tuned for more. You'll get an email with a bunch of links. You'll get a link to the recording, the transcript coming up in the next few days as well. So look out for those. There'll be a link for feedback. So please click on that link, provide us some feedback so we can improve our webinars and get some more ideas on what you would like us to present as well. And like I said, if you're looking to learn more, then visit our website, check out the links in our emails. We do plenty of training courses. Matt's training course is very popular for the testing techniques. So look out for that and a bunch of others. So thank you all again. Thank you for staying overtime, and we hope we can see you soon for the next one. Have a great day.
Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you all enjoyed.
Bye, everyone.